early in the relationship and you become highly dependent on their love bombing. Whatever this person gives to you in the beginning, you just become so thirsty for it. So thirsty for it that you'll accept a drop. You'll accept breadcrumbs from it. And what makes this pretty tough is most people that get involved in trauma bonds are probably people that are struggling with codependency. I've done a whole episode on codependency and how that really works. But really, it's a person who does not know how to meet their own emotional needs, their own emotional well being. So they look at relationships as a way to kind of fulfill that, the person that they're involved with. And when a person love bombs them, it just gives them a reason to stick around or pursue this forward, even though red flags may be involved. And when the way you really know that you're kind of getting involved in a trauma bond is when Welcome to the Free and Redeem podcast. I am your host, Simon Andra, and here on this specific show, we tackle over key topics that every single Christian struggles with. We bring in guests, we bring in godly wisdom, and more importantly, we bring in scriptures in the Bible to help you enhance your walk with God, bring in confidence, and put you into the direction of freedom and grace by the power of the Holy Spirit. If you're new to this platform, I encourage you to subscribe. With all that being said, guys, let's get started with today's episode. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Free and Redeem podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the 7 phases of a trauma bond. But before we get into that, if you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe. We are posting content once again every single Saturday, and I'm very excited about what we're going to be discussing on today's episode. However, one thing I really do want to encourage anyone who is listening, anyone who's checking this channel out for the first time. As you know, my name is Simon. I'm the host of the Free and Redeem podcast. I'm a self-esteem life coach and a future mental health counselor in the making as we speak. So if you need to just sit down, talk it out, especially in today's subject, feel free to click on the link in the description. I'm willing to take free one-on-one calls with people. Just really listen about their stories, how much of an impact it's really been on their life, and hopefully helping you find the right direction that you're really looking for in overcoming a traumatic relationship, which we are going to get into today. I'm very excited about today's episode only because of one reason, and that's really because the topic of a trauma bond is something I feel like I've been wanting to speak on a little bit more. I know I had the privilege of speaking about trauma bonds. Actually, I was a guest on a specific podcast show. I believe it was about 2 years ago, and I haven't spoken to this host in a while. But yeah, it was a really good episode. I really just kind of sat down, told my story, how much I've learned about this specific subject. But one of the things that I talked about towards the end of the episode is the 7 phases of a trauma bond, and I go through that towards the end of the episode. Really encourage you to check it out. The link will be in the description. Of course, I believe the host's name, her name is Jody, and really had a great time being on her show. Shout out to her if she's listening to this episode. But trauma bond, what does that mean? Well, there's a lot of definitions or a lot of assumptions I'm sure we can give about this subject, but the way I was introduced to this subject was specifically when I was going through a dark period in my life, overcoming a really toxic relationship. And what really impacted me the most is how much of an impact my life was after I got out of this relationship or cut off a certain person in my life. And I was introduced to this book randomly. And sometimes I do believe it was the Lord who, blessed me by getting me to, I didn't read the book, but I listened to it on Audible. And the simple title of the book was called Trauma Bonding by Dr. Anley Alexander, who is a mental health professional, has been studying trauma for quite some time. And when I listened to this specific book, it's pretty long, I was just amazed of how much this specific subject dives deep into the psychology of relationships. I would say ever since I read this book, it really helped me look at relationships in a different perspective. And I'm really hoping that's what today's episode is going to really do for you if you're listening. But a trauma bond, getting into the definition. Well, if we split those two words apart, we have to look at the word trauma. What does the word trauma mean? Well, according to dictionary.com, trauma could simply just mean an emotional response to a distressing event that is psychologically overwhelming and can have lasting negative effect on one individual or more. And the whole entire concept of trauma is an analogy that I remember I heard one time. And when I heard this analogy, I thought it was amazing or very brilliant. But it even came from another book that really circles the whole entire concept of trauma. And it's from, Dr. Vessel A. Vanderkork, The Body Keeps the Score, which is a very long book. What's funny is I still haven't finished it. But if you're really wanting to learn more about just the neurological side of trauma, how it works, why people respond to trauma in different ways, I really encourage you to check that book out as well. But trauma, when you think of the whole entire concept of trauma, I think of trauma almost as a brand. When I say brand, I'm actually talking about those brands that you see ranchers or farmers use on cattle when they are tagging, and so many words, that's what they refer to it as, tagging different types of cattle on the farm or on the property. The very disturbing thing about branding is what basically they do is they take a hot iron steel, they put it and heat it up. Basically, can't tell you how hot it is, but the point is, when you see it, they burn the cattle with that brand, stick it right against their skin, and of course every single cow, bull, they have a strong, painful reaction to it. So sad how we treat animals today, but they brand the cattle, and the purpose of branding the cattle is just to simply show other farmers, like, hey, this is our tag, this cattle belongs to this specific farm or acres or whatever it may be. But think of it this way: when you think of the term or the concept of a brand getting branded, it's like, that is a lot of people today when it comes to trauma. People today are branded by various events that happen in their life, rather if it's the brand of rejection, the brand of abuse, the brand of, physical altercation, the brand of betrayal, the brand of shame, just so many types of emotions, emotional responses or emotional events that happen in different types of people's lives. But I think the different part about trauma is it's an event that occurs in somebody's life, but it leaves a lasting impact, as so does a brand when a cow is branded by hot iron steel. Now, here's the thing: the initial effect of a brand, yes, I'm sure it's very painful in the beginning. It probably stings the cow for maybe a few days, maybe weeks. I mean, basically, it's given an animal third-degree burns. But eventually that pain goes away. But I guess what doesn't go away is the actual brand itself. It sticks on their skin. And that is the whole entire concept of what I can give about trauma. If you want to understand trauma a little bit more, is if you're listening to this, it's just like some people go through very painful experiences that are definitely unforgettable. And even though those experiences are probably painful, they're unforgettable, they stick in a person's mind, it causes a person to grieve, to be angry. Eventually the pain may look like it goes away, but deep down inside, it's branded on their soul, it's branded on their heart, whatever occurs. So that's what we could really talk about when it comes to the concept of trauma. Now, when we talk about a bond, that's a more simple definition. A bond is basically what? It's very simple. Just two people coming together and mutually connecting, rather if it's in a romantic way, if it's in a friendship way, if it's in a business partnership way, whatever it may be, it's two people mutually coming together and connecting and becoming close. Now, a trauma bond is something that I feel like a lot of people are getting involved with. I could tell you that this is an impact I feel like it's just a various amount of people. And I think the troubling part about this subject is I think there's a lot of people that are involved in trauma bonds and they don't realize that they are involved in one, or don't believe that they were once involved in one. And the question maybe is, how do I know that I'm in a trauma bond? Well, this isn't so much of a, hey, here are 7 signs that you're in a trauma bond. But I really want to talk about the phases of a trauma bond, how it works, and how much of an impact it can really have on your life. And to get this episode started or really get into it, it's just simple. Phase 1, I think, really kind of gets people's attention. And I think this is something we really need to be aware of. And I talked about this even in the last episode we did when I talked about how to identify a toxic person. But phase number 1 is what I like to refer to as love bombing. What does love bombing mean? Well, love bombing, it can mean a variety of things. And most of the examples I give are probably talking more on a romantic sense of a relationship. But love bombing, we think of the analogy of a bomb that just boom goes off and there's like a big explosion, a high amount of energy that comes out of it. And that's what you could really say about love bombing. It's a high psychological effect another individual gives to another individual. One thing I also want to say, I almost forgot to mention this, is a trauma bond probably is two people coming together that have strong emotional baggage. Love bombing, in a way, gets your attention It's something that I feel like a lot of people tend to do. One thing I could even say too is when it comes to when we understand something about a trauma bond, most of the time it's one individual getting attached to a person with a narcissistic personality disorder. In other words, it's one person is really in this for specific reasons. They're in the ride with this person. In a way, they're addicted to the ride. While another person is, they know they need to get out of the ride, but they are feeling the impacts of that high roller coaster. It's just like an emotional roller coaster. That's what love feels like, or how most people describe love bombing. It's like, boom, it gets your attention right away. And most of the time, it's when another individual basically makes you, you could just say it, they make you feel good in the beginning. They love bomb you, and it could include a lot of variety of things. It could include flattering you right off the get-go, flirting with you, making you feel noticed, making you feel wanted, making you feel accepted, like almost like something that you may not have experienced with other people, especially if you're thinking about it in the dating world. When I say flattery, I mean, it could these people can tell you, wow, you know, I've never met someone like you before. You know, they really try to boost up your self-esteem. And not to say that that's wrong, but sometimes we have to kind of stop and think here. How fast are we going when we're getting to know somebody, when we're meeting somebody for the first time? And when we connect with somebody for the first time, how fast are they willing to go? Most of the time, a person who has a narcissistic personality, as I mentioned in the last episode, they tend to be very charming in the beginning. They like to be charming in the beginning because they know this is how they get people. Another good example of love bombing is, I like to refer to this as, they could get you involved in what I call an oxytocin physical experience. Oxytocin is what I like to refer to. It's a hormone that our body releases when we bond with somebody, when we actually physically bond with someone. Yeah, obviously a common example I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about is obviously intercourse or physical touch, simply just holding your hand, putting your arm around somebody, you know, actually getting close all the time, physically getting close. You could even say stuff like making out, kissing, really bonding with this person in a really intimate way. You know, it's like I said, sometimes these things are not wrong, but if this is the way the person is, if this is the impression a person is using with you, sometimes we have to keep our eyes out. A lot of people miss this. The love bombing phase really just kind of wires your brain in a way it should not be wired. It wires your brain to believe, hey, this is something good for me. I've never felt this before. And when you get really caught up in the love bombing phase, then it's very easy to get caught up in the second phase. And I like to refer to this phase as number 2, trust and codependency. You know, here's the thing. The impact of love bombing results in you trusting this person right away. Early in the relationship, you know, if we have to kind of be more honest about it. Early in the relationship, and you become highly dependent on their love bombing. Whatever this person gives to you in the beginning, you just become so thirsty for it that you'll accept a drop. You'll accept breadcrumbs from it. And what makes this pretty tough is most people that get involved in trauma bonds are probably people that are struggling with codependency. I've done a whole episode on codependency and how that really works. But really, it's a person who does not know how to meet their own emotional needs, their own emotional well-being. So they look at relationships as a way to kind of fulfill that, the person that they're involved with. And when a person love bombs them, it just gives them a reason to stick around or pursue this forward, even though red flags may be involved. And when the way you really know that you're kind of getting involved in a trauma bond is when, and this is something that was very interesting in the book, is when you find yourself always thinking about this person. You like them so much. And like I said, I'm using more of an example of a romantic relationship. You can't stop thinking about them. You always want to be around them. You're always curious, like, man, where are they at? I would love to see them again. In so many words, people think it's like butterflies or flying saucers going off in a person's body, which our body will release if we're getting romantically invested in someone. You know, but another thing we have to understand too, I remember in the book, Dr. Anley Alexander basically says, when you are constantly, obsessively thinking about somebody, even when you're not around them, sometimes people mistake that for the concept of love. Oh, I must be falling in love with them. But she says that is not love. That's actually a wound. It's a wound deep down inside that is being awakened by another individual. And another good example too is when you may fear the person. If you like somebody so much that you actually fear them, what do I mean when I say this? You fear them that you're afraid, oh my gosh, am I ever going to see them again? What if they get tired of me? You just start to become so insecure. What if they reject me? What if they don't like me anymore? What if they betray me? What if they just stop seeing the value in me? You almost already kind of pre-anticipate the rejection they're probably going to give you in the long run because of how strongly you feel the impact of the love bombing this person gave you. It's almost, it shocks you, so therefore it makes you very fearful. You know, if I could even use an example that's not in the sense of a romantic relationship, you may be, hey, if you get really close to, let's say, a friend, you may be intimidated. Hey, I noticed he's getting closer to another friend. He's spilling out more secrets to another friend. Wait, does he not trust me anymore? You know, whatever the case may be, the second phase, it's like we start to build too much trust over a person. Therefore, you know, our soul and our self-worth, the victim, I'm going to refer to this as the narcissist and the victim. The victim starts to become more dependent on the narcissist because they know that the narcissist has a good way of charming people. But moving on to number 3, I like to refer to this phase as, I call this the red flag trap. What do I mean when I say the red flag trap? There's different, you know, I guess you can say there's different names that people give this specific phase. Some people call it the reveal, but I refer to this as the trap because here's the thing about red flags is how easy or how obvious they could be to see in the beginning. But when a person is so caught up in the moment, so caught up in the attraction with another individual, it's so easy to miss the red flag. But when you get into the phase where you start becoming dependent, you start trusting this person, the red flags that you kind of notice about them start to really kind of make its way into your life, into the relationship. You know, the narcissist starts to reveal the toxic side of them. Rather, if they have anger issues, you actually find out they lie. They are not being fully honest about themselves or who they are. You find out that you may not be the only person that they're messing around with. You may find out there's a track record of other people they've messed around with or who they've hurt before in the past. And these are things where it's almost kind of like this is where the initial brand, that actual initial stinging effect. The person does something that now offends you. It hurts your heart. It breaks your heart. But it's like, you know, what is a trap? You know, the simple definition of a trap. Here's the thing. There's no such thing as a trap without bait. If something's gonna get caught in a trap, there has to be bait in the beginning. And a lot of people are biting into the bait. You know, they're biting into the bait that a person is getting. Very recently, and matter of fact, I was just talking to one of my mental health counselors about this in one of my sessions. I was talking about a past relationship. Thank God I did not progress forward with this relationship. We had a really good connection. We were talking, we were getting close, we were really bonding, and I felt like things were going to progress forward. But what was really getting to me at the time is there were a lot of obvious red flags that I was noticing about her. Not going to get into too much detail, but what was really difficult was one of those red flags was physical boundaries. One of my interactions with her is she was very comfortable being very physical early on in the relationship. We all know my reasons for not another individual, especially if I'm not married to them. But this person's like, hey, it's okay. We're just here to figure each other out, seeing if we're a good fit for each other. And when I communicated my boundaries to her, boom, it was like that. There was that bait. Hey, I'm interested in you. You know, there's chemistry. And I think that's the issue with red flags. Just because you have chemistry with this person, just because you both are physically head over heels for each other, that doesn't mean that this is a person you should be sticking around with. And what was very tough, and I'm going to get more into this later, it's like, man, like I saw the bait. You could say, hey, you know, you should have done it. You know, some people may say you should have done it. But I'm looking back at some of the red flags I saw about this person, and I'm realizing if I engaged, man, this could have easily been a trap. A lot of people find themselves getting caught up in a trap with another individual. Sometimes I see people, man, if I could just go back and take it seriously when people told me, hey, I think this guy, I just think he's only talking to you because he's trying to make his girlfriend jealous. Or, hey, you know, I hope you know this person, they have a track record of cheating on other individuals. Or this person, hey, I noticed he has anger issues. This person seems controlling. Take it serious. Let me just say this. Take it serious when people that you are close to, your friends, your family, if they're warning you about somebody, take it serious. And I think that's the issue a lot of times today is we don't take red flags serious. We ignore them most of the time. But that's the issue I would say with phase 3 is we get caught up in the trap of a person's red flag. We know it's there, but at the end of the day, we buy into the bait, the charm, the connection. But moving on into point number 4, I like to refer to this phase, and this is a very big one right here. I refer to this as manipulation and gaslighting. What makes a relationship abusive is not so much the actual abuse that occurs within itself, but it's what a person does, more specifically the narcissist, what a narcissist does to keep a person in a relationship, to keep a victim in a relationship, despite the toxicity that is going on in the relationship. That's honestly what makes the relationship abusive. Yeah, somebody can snap, somebody can do something wrong, they do something that hurts another individual, but what makes a relationship toxic or abusive is how that one person knows how to manipulate their way to keep a person in a relationship. What is that main way they keep a person in a relationship? I like to refer to this as gaslighting. What could I really describe between the concept of manipulation and gaslighting? Well, let me just say it like this. The simple term I could really give about manipulation, how you can recognize manipulation, which most people don't. That's the issue. That's the purpose of manipulation, is it's not recognized. Manipulation is basically when a person knows very skillfully, they know how to create a narrative around other individuals, around people they are around. They create a narrative where a person could easily interpret a specific reality, but deep down, here's the catch, they don't truly know the person's intentions behind that reality. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me just give an example of what I could say what manipulation really means. Well, if you're in a relationship where it's on and off, you're constantly breaking up with somebody, you're constantly ending it with someone, and one of the main things they always tell you is, hey, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have been this way, I need to be better, please come back, I miss you so much, I'm going to change, I'm going to be better, I'm not going to be the person that I once was or the person that hurt you. They give a sense of false humility to reel you back in. And in your mind, let's say if you're a victim, you're buying into that reality. Oh, the reality is they're humble, they're trying to change. But that person's real intention is, it's just like, they're just really using you for their own personal self-worth. I talked about a relationship that really hurt me back in the day. And being 5 years over that, that specific relationship or that connection I had, this specific person I was deeply hurt by. I'm looking back at it now. There was a lot of stuff that was said between me and this person that gave me the impression of the reality, like, oh, this person must be into me. This person must like me. This person, must have feelings for me the way I have feelings for them. Some of the stuff they would do gave me that impression of that specific reality. Little did I know back then, I didn't know this person's intentions were completely different from what I was wanting it to be. This person wants me to pursue them. This person wants me in a romantic sense. And really, at the end of the day, I think this person's intentions were just to simply get gratification from my attraction towards her, to simply receive the gratification that she was not getting from a previous relationship. And I think that's the very troubling part about somebody who gets into a manipulation phase. What makes a person probably more hurt is almost you feel betrayed. You actually feel crazy. You feel like your sense of reality is just completely off the rails. And that's the main goal of gaslighting. I haven't talked much about gaslighting before. In the episode that I'm on, I really give a detailed description of what gaslighting is. But if I really have to talk about gaslighting, we all know it's from that movie, Gaslighting. It's about a husband who makes his wife believe that she's going crazy by flickering on and off the lights or controlling the lights in their house. She sees flickering lights. He apparently doesn't see it, feels like she's hallucinating. Therefore, she believes she's going crazy. And it's his way of manipulating a reality of getting her out of her life and sent into a psychiatric hospital. That's the term of gaslighting. But gaslighting, in so many words, if I have to talk about it in an actual relationship, it's somebody who doesn't want to take accountability for the errors of a relationship. So therefore, they put that accountability on you. They make you take the accountability of their own mistakes, their own flaws. Here's the thing. What makes a relationship healthy? We could all agree with this. It's when two people can be held accountable for whatever has gone on in the relationship. However, the biggest trouble is not everyone wants to be held accountable. Gaslighting says you're going to be the one who's accountable. They'll change up the reality, making it look like you're the person who's in the wrong and they're the person who's in the right. You're the perpetrator and they're the victim. Even if there's a whole entire list of evidence of how guilty they are. Well, I wouldn't have cheated on you. I remember one time I saw this one clip of a guy who found out, it was a show, if it was even real or not, but it was called To Catch a Cheater. And it was this guy, he goes around, he helps people expose their partners cheating on them. And this one guy sees his girlfriend cheating on him. When he catches them, her simple response was, when he confronts her, I wouldn't be cheating on you if you weren't broke. I wouldn't be cheating on you if you weren't working a 9-to-5 job. I'm only dating guys who are financially well off. So it's your fault that this occurred. That is a perfect example of what gaslighting could look like. It's somebody who clearly is in the wrong, doing something wrong that's hurting another individual. So many words, lying behind that person's back and messing around with somebody else. But when they're confronted, it's your fault. You didn't provide for me enough. You didn't make me satisfied enough. Or, hey, you're hurt. You shouldn't be hurt. You know what you're feeling? Screw your feelings. Hey, you know what? I don't think I did anything wrong. I don't need to apologize to you. I'm doing you a disservice if I own up to what I said. This is a lot of stuff that could really be used as an example of gaslighting. But when you experience the impact of gaslighting and manipulation, we have to recognize how much of an impact that could be. Let me just say it like this. Actions not matching words, that is a perfect example of manipulation. Toxicity being made up for by charm and flattery, that's manipulation. If you catch somebody doing something, if you catch your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife doing something very toxic, doing something that's not right, or you're communicating that there's something wrong, and the way they get you back is they'll flirt with you, they'll seduce you, not making the relationship healthy. That's just, hey, I'm going to brush my problems under the rug. I'm going to brush my mistake, my actions under the rug, and let me just get it back by poking at your emotional buttons. Holding deeds against you. That's another perfect example of gaslighting. Hey, do you remember when I did this for you? Remember when I got you out of this? Remember when I did this? You know what? Hey, I could easily not do that anymore. I could easily throw you out in the dirt. Don't you remember what I've done for you? And see what I mean? It's just like we don't question the person. That's how you know you're in a trauma bond, is when you can't question your abuser. You can't question the person who is putting you through a traumatic roller coaster. The last three I want to talk about, and I'm going to go through these really quick, is when you feel the impact of phase number 4, manipulation and gaslighting, you find yourself going through phase number 5, a lack of control or trust. You don't know what to believe anymore. Trauma bonds always result in a person no longer having control over their life. They no longer have control of their emotions, their mental well-being, their confidence. So therefore it's almost like they give all that control to the other individual, to the narcissist, the person who almost just takes it away, or it's almost like they willingly give it to the person. And it's just like that emotional pain. It just affects you, that you just don't know how to trust others. You don't know what to believe. And sometimes you don't even want to trust the people that are trying to help you. You may find yourself being so controlled by another individual that you'll defend that person. Hey, you just don't understand. He just gets like that. If I get him upset, I shouldn't be that way. I should be better. Or no, I got to stick it around. I got to stick around with this person. They need me. I need to fix them. If I leave them, it's just like all this stuff we have to recognize. And therefore, in phase number 6, you find out that you're losing yourself. You go down a deep dive, probably of going through a depressive state. You lose your lack of self-esteem. You lose your motivation. You lose your confidence in yourself because you feel the heavy weight of the trauma bond. You go through that stinging effect of, you find out that the person has cheated on you multiple times. You find out that the person's not that serious about you. You find out that the person, only gives a certain portion of their effort. But you stick around because you just remember the love bombing, that initial impression they gave of you. A simple definition of trauma bonding is, you broke me you broke me, but I still believe that you're going to be the one who's going to fix me. And therefore, in the last phase, I like to refer to this as addicted to the cycle. The troubling part about trauma bonds is, you may think the simple explanation I can give you is just cut the person off, end it with them. You got to leave them alone. You got to move forward. You got to move on with your life. You may think that's simple advice, but let me tell you something. The troubling part about trauma bonds is you can remove that person out of your life if you're a victim of a trauma bond. You can cut them off. You could no longer talk to them, but it's that trauma, that brand that's in your heart that is going to make you addicted to the cycle. And who knows, you may get involved in other relationships that are just like the same person. And as I said before, you may be in a trauma bond in a toxic romantic relationship. And I've said this before, and the book even really describes it. I highly encourage you to check out the book. But the book accurately describes it as, trauma bonds are just two people coming together with heavy emotional baggage. You're getting caught up with a narcissistic person, maybe because you have to ask yourself, were you already connected with a narcissistic person in your past? Was it a parent figure? Was it a teacher? Was it somebody that you looked up to and you did not recognize the traumatic abuse they were putting you through? And you may be in a relationship right now where it's traumatic, it's toxic. You don't know how to remove that brand out of your heart. But this is why we are here to help. Mental health is a very serious thing today. That's why I really want to encourage you guys to check out the sponsor of today's episode, BetterHelp. BetterHelp has significantly helped me over the years. Matter of fact, that was the first counseling platform that I used when I was going through that traumatic relationship. Sometimes all we have to do is talk to someone who is an actual professional who has studied very hard over these specific subjects and knows how, not knows it all, but can help you walk step by step on how to break free from the trauma that you may currently be going through. Even as a self-esteem coach, if you just need someone to talk to, click on the link below and I am more than happy to assist you and just be a listening ear of what's been going on in your life. And we can create a plan that's suitable for you, that's comfortable for you. And that's something I just want to encourage you with. But another thing I want to end off with today is you are so much more than that toxic relationship. The person who could totally just heal you from that brand that's in your heart right now, the traumatic brand, is the Lord himself. If you are considering, just moving forward in your life, sometimes just to surrender to the man on the cross, the man upstairs, is what we really just need to consider, because he's the only one who could fully fulfill us, as he even told the woman at the well, which is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. But what do you guys think? These are the 7 phases that are very commonly addressed in the concept of a trauma bond. Feel free to let me know in the comments. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. With all that being said, God bless everyone.